with Kim Fraser in the last part of our conversation. Kim, we were talking in the program, because I know we want to get onto the 12 spiritual laws, but we're talking about when your first guru opened you up to see people's chakras. And then for the next 6 weeks, you saw everything.
Yeah.
And then you were able to bring it in to some sort of alignment where it was controllable, I guess.
Yeah.
Does it ever go back, though, to like...
Most of the time I'm able to turn it on and off at will, and I can change channels like you could change a television, you know, from channel 9 to channel 7 to channel whatever it is.
What does that mean?
Well, I can look at people's thought forms, or I can look at their aura, or I can look at the angels that are with them, or I can look at past lives that they've had, or whatever it is that's going to be of assistance to that person. And occasionally it happens spontaneously that I see stuff when I'm not really all that interested in looking. But I've got to say, most of the time I'm more interested in the world, the physical world that I live in, and let's face it, you've got to stay grounded. So that's a big part of what I teach, is that you've got to be grounded. It's great to have all these other gifts, but you live in the physical world. And so...
And the lower chakras have to be healthy also.
Yeah.
Okay, 12 spiritual laws.
Well, I'm going to have to look at them because I won't remember them. The first few laws, probably the first 5, I would say have specific application to what happens in the realm of the mind, that astral realm I was talking about. The first one is the law of vibration. And the law of vibration is really just saying that every thought, every word, every action, and everything has a vibration. And that can either be low or high. Whenever we're thinking thoughts of doom, gloom, shame, blame, we're going down the slippery slope. You know, it's like snakes and ladders. You're going down and you're creating stuff for your future that's going to be of that vibration. Whereas whenever we are thinking uplifting thoughts, perhaps praying or chanting, or thinking loving thoughts, or taking responsibility for our life and trying to work through things, we're actually going up a ladder. And so therefore we will actually end up in a life that's much better than we would have anticipated. And it's how we think and how we act, of course, and the sort of words that come out of our mouth. When someone hurts you, do you give back in kind, which would be low vibrational down a slippery slope, or do you deal with it and forgive, send love, which we'll talk about in a minute, but then you go up. So that, I could talk about that for half a day, but really that's the essence of the law of vibration, the first one.
So it's a bit like what Jesus said about turn the other cheek.
Yes, yeah, that's what that one's about. The second one is the law of attraction, which I think most people who are watching this show would already understand, that the vibration that we have attracts to it events or circumstances or things of like vibration. And so we might vibrate really highly on Sundays when we go to church, but then Mondays, Tuesdays and Wednesdays we might be, you know, not, when we're at work it might be different. And so we might be pulling to ourselves a mixed bag. The law of attraction will pull to us precisely what it is that our vibration tells us we should have. I believe it actually goes beyond this life though, and that it takes into account past life things, but that's a whole other story. Yep. Yes, the third one is the law of polarity. This one says that everything has an opposite. This is true of both the astral and the physical dimension. It's not true at all in the etheric dimension. There's no opposite chakra or no opposite aura. It's not true in the soul dimension. There's no opposites. There's just joy, love, happiness and peace in the soul dimension. But in the astral dimension, where we do our thinking, for joy to happen there has to be sorrow. You know, for love there's got to be not love, and so on. Happiness, sadness, up, down, big, fat, small, skinny,
black, white, hot, cold.
That's it. So that's the law of polarity. Is saying that, and so therefore we need both ends, because we can't disappear either end of the polarity. We mightn't like it, but it's still part of creation and we've got to learn to deal with it. The next one is the law of non-attachment. The law of non-attachment basically says that if you want something, the divine will send it to you, but if you want it so bad that you won't be happy until you get it, the universe will say, yes, you will, and will actually hold it back from you until you realise that you're happy and well and everything's fine. And when you're not attached to it anymore, then it just gives it to you. So that's the law of non-attachment. The next one is the law of acceptance. The law of acceptance could also be called the law of not judging. And it relates back to the law of polarity. So if, for instance, on the law of polarity, we have, I don't know, happy and sad, if we judge sadness as bad, it will tend to follow us around. We'll keep creating things that have sadness about them because we've judged it's bad.
Or judging someone who is sad as bad. Is that the same?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about the pure astral energy of sadness.
Okay.
If we say that's bad, it tends to stick to us.
Yep.
When we accept that sad has a place in creation, and that sometimes it's quite appropriate to feel sad, you know, there are times if someone's just died and you didn't feel sad, there'd be something wrong with you, you know, and it is the polar opposite of happy. And when we can accept both of those things, then it's the acceptance that's important. Okay. Again, this is something we could talk about for hours with lots and lots of examples to make it more understandable. The whole issue of shadow and mirroring comes in there to the law of acceptance rather than judgment. To me, it's one of the key things about having a happy relationship is accepting each other, sort of warts and all really, and learning to love something that perhaps once you didn't think was lovable, but you just accept it because you accept the person. You know, it doesn't mean you have to approve of it necessarily, but you just accept it.
Is that also, because our previous program, we're talking about fatherhood, etc., and some of the things that go with that. I guess that whole thing, isn't it? Until we accept and honour some of our more challenging points, then we're not going to accept it in someone else.
That's right. There's a whole lot of myths and legends that also teach these laws. Hercules, when he was cutting off the heads of the Hydra, and he kept lopping off heads and more heads would appear. And at the end of the day, what he had to do was accept that this thing was a multi-headed monster, and he had to actually bow to it and accept that it had a part in creation. And when he bowed to it, he was able to just pick it up and hurl it in Herculean fashion out of anyone's harm, out of harm's way sort of thing, you know. Anyway, so that's the first